Welcome to the We Talk Careers podcast, brought to you by Women in ETFs. This is Christine Delano, and I'm thrilled you've joined us. If you're pursuing excellence in your own career or intrigued by the hustle required to make it to the top, this podcast is for you. This is season 6, and we are dropping in on leaders across the globe. We're going to learn how to balance, how to speak truth to power, and how to have fun doing it. So put aside that massive to-do list and let's get inspired. Welcome, Jennifer Kaplan, to the We Talk Careers podcast. So good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be a part of it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little background, give us your bio for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the CEO and founder of Evolve PR and Marketing. We are the largest PR firm in Arizona. There are 28 on our team and a little over 140 clients. We're not a full service agency, so there's certainly a lot of full service agencies that have 60, 80, 100 people on their team, but we are all focused on PR as our niche. And our job is to get our clients' name out in the media, in the community, tell their story through TV, radio, print, online, podcasts, influencers, and everything that we do for our clients is earned media, so editorial opportunities. And then the marketing, as I define it, community outreach, cross-promotional opportunities. So what other ways can we get our clients' name out in addition to and separate of the media? And a lot of times it can lead to a media opportunity, but really trying to curate, maybe there's something tying in with a charity, maybe we're helping plan a grand opening, a launch, a groundbreaking, an unveiling, and that can just be its own thing on its own. But again, a lot of times they'll complement each other. So we're that ambassador, if you will, for our clients out in the community.
All right. And beyond your job, tell us a little bit about what the softer side of Jennifer.
Yeah, I would say definitely the balance of exercise is really important to me. I didn't marry until later in life. The business was, as I would joke, my husband, my kid, my fish, my dog, everything. So I was fortunate enough to meet my husband 6 years ago and get married 4 years ago. So he's definitely brought me over to that softer side where I'm not just living and breathing work. But I would say exercise was always a mainstay for me to kind of have that escape and balance from work and of course family and friends. But yeah, I would say pretty much I've been defined by work for the last 20 years.
I have to say that I had 23 years in high finance before I sort of moved on, and I'm now a writer and sit on boards. And I was media trained to be able to speak to the media on behalf of my companies for the products that we had and things like that. But I honestly never really understood the difference between PR and marketing and sort of the overall communications areas until I had a book coming out. Now all of a sudden I have a marketing team and a PR team, and I get it wrong occasionally as to which team I need to be communicating with for which opportunities. But it's been this huge eye-opening area for me to have a team that's focused on earned opportunities to be able to speak on behalf of myself and my book. So maybe talk to folks a little bit about what PR is. I think we hear it all the time, but we don't always have a really good definition or really understand why it's so important.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I do feel like marketing is that big umbrella and so many things fall in it. And now social media and it's all marketing. But the PR, and even when I say the earned media, our job is to get our clients to be the thought leader, the expert, the go-to, increase credibility, value, enhance their brand, and do all that by telling their story. So whether it is an author or a chef or a corporation, everyone has a message and we help craft the message and then get it out there so people can be educated or providing something informational to help drive, whether it is with a nonprofit, maybe volunteerism or donations, or a restaurant, it could be, we say butts and seats, or driving sales of a book. And so we are that conduit to the external world, but really the essence of what we're doing is positioning and posturing that individual or business to get their name out there and be that again, kind of that thought leader and expert in their space and that go-to. And so, yeah, it helps to be on that side because on the flip side, and that's on the PR side, because on the flip side is buying an ad. And they do say that PR is 3.5 times the impact as an ad. Sometimes you consciously know that, and sometimes you don't because you're like, yeah, that was an ad. They paid for that. Sometimes you don't even realize it, that you're seeing all these advertisements come your way, especially with social media showing up in your feed. I know for myself, I'm like, oh, I'd love that dress or look at those sunglasses. So we're getting hit with that all the time. But, having those opportunities that are earned has a greater impact. You're really seeing that person as the expert and go-to in their space.
Absolutely. I find myself doing that all the time. If I see something that says it's sponsored or something that, sort of disclaims it as saying that it's there because someone sort of paid for it to be there. It has a higher bar for me in terms of me being even willing to sort of glance at it. So that makes a huge sense of how important this sort of earned media is. I am fascinated by passionate you were about building your company that it became the everything to you. I feel like I work with women all the time where that passion does translate to this sort of overwhelming idea of sure we have other things going on in life, but we've really put everything into what we do. So take us back to how that transition happened for you. Did you always know you wanted to be in PR? Did you always sort of recognize that in yourself, or was there something about what you were doing before that enabled you to sort of create this amazing company?
Yeah, I love that question because my mom would say I was born doing PR. And I use the analogy of Tiger Woods when he was, 3 years old and you see him swinging a club and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe one day he'll be some big golfer. And that really was me in the sense of like always being about people and networking and connecting. I got senior most talkative in high school. I studied communications with an emphasis in public relations in college. So it really was something that embodied who I am and who I was at that time on my journey. The entrepreneurial part, my family are all entrepreneurs, so to, take that risk and chance on starting a business was something that felt comfortable as well because my family had done it in, obviously different industries. But I would say that it's not even a work thing in my mind. I get up and I'm so excited. And to put a little bow on the fact that I said now I'm married, bless my husband's heart, he actually works at the company. So I roped him in here. He retired when I met him from a career he had. So now he does everything but PR. He's our COO. But even the fact that I brought him into this world is probably a sign of how it is just part of my DNA. Doesn't feel like work. So to what you're saying, yeah, there are a lot of people that it just sort of ends up embodying who they are. It's not a job for sure. It's just who I am.
So take us through that leap of faith of leaving perhaps a corporate job, someone who was actually paying
Yeah, yep,
you, and
yep.
deciding that, yeah, you're going to be an entrepreneur, which is a just a huge piece of courage that it takes to do that.
I felt like I was being true to myself in a way. I knew that I was at a corporate job, making six figures in my 20s, which was, I was in sales, but it was UPS, large company. But I felt like it was something I needed to do. My mom calls fear the real four-letter F word. And so that encouragement, knowing that if it didn't work out, I could always fall back on, another career or job. It was a pivotal time in my life. I had been married in my 20s and I was actually going through a divorce. I'd only been married a couple of years and didn't have kids, but I was like, you know what? Time out. If I'm going through this divorce and I'm going back to my maiden name and going, making all these changes, now is the time to do it. And so, looking back 30, so young, I would say it was a little bit of a fake it till you make it sort of thing, minus that passion that I had. But at 30, what did I really know about starting a business and running a business? But I had a business partner for the first five. And then I sold my equity to her to go on my own 16 years ago. And then took a year and sort of went low profile because a lot of the clients stayed with me. And she and I had a great relationship, so I didn't want to be so competitive. And then a year after that, I started Evolve. So Evolve's 15 years just this last September. So I would say it was really sort of that encouragement from my family and realizing that this was the time if I don't do it now. And not that I would say that anyone who's 40, 50, 60 who has an idea or wants to take the leap, that it's too late. But I think at 30, it was like, you know what? I got no kids. I have no, real risk in it. So here I am 20 years later with
Um,
27 kids and a mouth to feed.
I actually wrote it down. Fear is the real four-letter F word because I've been thinking a lot about fear in writing. And for me, I've tried to turn fear into fuel. Like when I am going to write something and I start to feel like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough, either for the structure of what this scene needs or the emotionality that the scene needs. I'm an imposter. I'm not really a real writer. And all of these things start coming to me. I know I'm about to do something great. Like as soon as I can sort of like push through all of that and say, actually, that's what's going to keep me back from doing something fantastic with where this story needs to go. I know that's the fuel going forward. And I didn't see fear like that before. I used to see fear as something to sort of try to avoid and try to like gain knowledge through or try to have other people help me through. And now I see it as, ooh, I may be onto something if I'm fearing that direction. So
Channeling it a little bit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's sort of like my gut telling me, notice this. Like it's not always good, but sometimes it actually just means that I'm, gonna go into a direction that's gonna open up, brand new ways of either connecting with readers or finding a new way to tell a story very inventively. So I just think I just wanted to kind of pause on that word fear for a second because it really can open some amazing doors if you're sort of paying attention to why you have the fear, right?
Yeah, totally. And I even see that with clients because we touch so many different businesses and the place that they're in, maybe at the stage that we meet them, is all different. How it can be so challenging or polarizing. And just, I say to my team, and I've said this for a long time to them, feel your power because, sometimes it's judgment or that failure. I'm going to try this, I'm going to fail. And then so what? You
Right.
maybe go a different path or a different avenue, or it makes you stronger and you learn from it. I mean, it's easier to say than when you're in it. So I understand that, but just not letting that hold you back. And now look, you've got this book that you're finishing up
Mm.
and getting ready to
Yeah.
have come out and, have it be embraced by all the people that want to read it. So yeah, I think that that's when, people say, do you have any regrets? I don't have any regrets. There are things that I've done that maybe were mistakes or things that I maybe shouldn't have, not necessarily, I try not to look at it as a regret. I try to look at it as like a lesson.
Yes.
I went down this path. I should have said this or would have done that differently, but I can't regret it because I brought me to where I am right now.
Right. And watching
Um,
people who can make mistakes, admit the mistake, see the learning, move on, be willing to talk about it, that kind of self-confidence is so attractive. It is so great to watch. And people who are, just willing to say, hey, we all mess up, as opposed to, I remember certainly early on in my career, it's like, you can never mess up. I'm the only female on the team. I'm being looked at because of this and this and this, my age. I'm an engineer in a financial services job. Like all of these things were just working against me. And that fear of failure was just crippling. And I remember I had a CEO that came into the firm. He brought me in. I was heading up technology strategy at the time. And he said, you know what? You got to be right more than you're wrong, but don't not be wrong. Right.
mm,
Like
mhm.
you got to take the risks. We got to grow and then just fail fast. And it was just this huge relief to say, oh, okay, I'm not going to be fired at my first failure. I'm going to be fired if I don't fail. And I think cultures like that for people who are entrepreneurial in spirit or just sort of strategic in spirit can be very uplifting.
Yeah, and I've tried to do that. I want to create an environment where my team wants to I create the environment that I would want to be in.
Yes.
So I don't want to put people in a box. And so, there's some other things too, but one of them is that, I want you to at least try. And worst case is we say we tried. But if we don't try, then we don't even know, or if a client is wanting more, needing more, as long as I know that we've done everything we can, even if the outcome is not what we wanted, at least we tried. At least we know. So
Right.
it's okay to take that risk knowing the outcome may not be all stars and flowers and
Right.
fireworks, but at least we can do that than saying, you know what, we never even tried.
A lot of our listeners to We Talk Careers podcast are women in the throes of a pretty significant career. Some of them are starting out, but a lot of them are looking to get to that next level. They're really understanding sort of their place and their strength within their firm. What advice do you have for them in terms of sort of owning their brand and how a company like yours actually could be helpful to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I want to jump a little to social media. Well, one of my isms is perception is reality. So if you're wanting to step up and out more in building your brand and awareness, I do believe that PR is a component of it, obviously. But social media is this great free platform. And if we're talking business, for sure, everyone needs to be on LinkedIn and utilizing it. Instagram, Facebook, and others have their place depending on what industry they might be in. And again, using it. The PR we say is an asset, one to do an interview or, have an article run or do a podcast, share it, put it out there. Again, that's perception is reality. Oh, they interviewed you, or you were the one speaking on this topic, or they did a feature or an article on you. That whole perception, if they're seeing that getting posted and shared, it's like, wow, we need to talk to her. She must be doing something really big within her industry or has something to say that people want to listen to. So I would say in building the brand, there's a few components, but social media is a must and not just having it, using it, putting content out there, sharing industry news, thought leadership, just like we talked about in the PR. And then from, the PR perspective, I think that because it's that earned media, people don't always think about a PR firm behind the scenes. So again, the ad, they know you bought it, placed the ad. That earned media being that go-to resource in your industry can really elevate the way people, look at you and people that don't know you, can hear about you a little bit more, maybe in a TV interview or a magazine in your community, things like that. So, I would say the social media, the PR, and then of course advertising, if that fits within budget and realm, that's another big one to elevate. I am, big into the community and people, advocating people to get involved in the community, sitting on a board. Cause marketing is just that, cause marketing. People's like, well, I don't want to, mix the two or brag about this or that. But you know what? If an entity or an organization is benefiting from what you can bring them, it's okay to tout that, put out there that you're sitting on a particular board if you feel like there's some good networking or people that you can get exposure to. So I think there's multiple ways that you can, enhance your brand and bring more awareness to elevate, what you're doing.
I was talking to a friend recently and I was trying to explain the difference between me and my husband. So I have an amazing husband. We've been married for 28 years. I put my hands way far apart and I said, okay, this is the amount of information my husband gets. And then I closed my hand up to it just like a few inches apart. And I was like, this is the amount of information that I get from him about
Oh,
said conversation. And then I say, the difference is with me, I'm like pretty close together on the amount of information I'll get something, but the amount that I convey is very large because I bring in embellishment. I want to make it a little bit more interesting. I've got some background on it. So, everything I say comes with a whole lot more because I love to storytell. I love to bring people in. I like to make things a little bit more interesting. If I'm going to say anything at all, I want it to be meaningful. So Tell me a little bit about how storytelling comes into Evolve. Like, how is it that you kind of tell the story of your clients?
Well, I almost feel like that should be in the name of every PR firm because really that is what our job is. We need that content, we need that information, we need to know the story, the backstory, all the details. So sometimes we are condensing it and putting it into a shape and form that's easily consumed by a writer or reporter that just needs it quick. You only get their attention for, or they're getting so many other pitches and information coming their way. So still, we need to tell that story. Or if we have more space, whether that's a press release or an article that we're writing on behalf of our clients, everything we do is truly storytelling. It's just more, I mean, you nailed it. In like what amount of time and what amount of space are we telling it? And we want it to be, I mean, obviously there's lots of space that these outlets need to fill, whether especially online now, they've got all this space they need to fill with stories and articles constantly, but it still needs to capture their attention. And then at the end of the day, that story we want to have resonate with end user, reader, listener. So it does show some translation or impact. So we actually do a lot of coaching with our clients as well. That media training, we might secure the interview or the opportunity, but now the story still needs to come across. We're not done yet. And so talking points, role playing, making sure that they're comfortable to be able to tell that story. So the level we're telling the story isn't to the end person a lot of times. It's to a writer, reporter, editor, whoever. But then our client needs to finish the loop on a lot of that. So it's kind of twofold. We're telling a story, we're telling our client story, and then our clients need to also tell the story. And
Right.
sometimes it's hard for them.
Yes. Well, and I think it's sometimes hard to know what pieces are the most relevant to the audience you're wanting to talk to. You want to give backstory. I read a lot of writers and, the first 5 pages, I'm like, no, no, no backstory. Like, we got to get into the action. We got to know what's going on. You got to pull people in. We don't need to know all this other stuff that, maybe later on it's important to the world you've created or whatever. But so I can really appreciate that. What makes a really great client for you? Like, who is it that really thrives in the area of being able to use your services?
There's three things, content, communication, and collaboration. We're driving the bus. We're going to go do our job. We're going to, all the things that we've just talked about, tell the story, craft the story, who the story needs to be told to, different writers, reporters, outlets, all that. That's what our clients are hiring us for. But it's not just we hire a PR firm and then we go do our thing. We need to make sure that we're collaborating, like I said, and having that content, that communication is really essential because you're living and breathing it on the front line. You know things and you're seeing things that we're not. The communication and the collaboration is also when we have an opportunity. Oh my gosh, we can't get a hold of so and so. I mean, this is big and exciting. We've tried to text, we tried to call, we tried to, so sometimes we lay out from the beginning when we onboard a client that those things are all essential. And we can tell pretty quickly if they might say yes in the moment, but we can tell pretty quickly, you know what, it's taken them a while to reply to an email or respond or get back to us or provide us with what they need. And they might have something that's so timely and we're like, why haven't we heard from them? So the ideal client would be someone who is more responsive, more engaged, is providing us with things that are happening on a regular basis. So many home runs, and it's so great when it is that way because we can see the results that really come through for what the goal is for them to get, their name out and tell their story to the world and to the community. So I would say it's not necessarily an industry, anything about the business or the industry. It's really more so that communication.
Yes. You mentioned earlier on about just the role social media has taken in being able to get out people's story, being able to be used as a way of, media and communication. first of all, how has that changed what you do over the course of the 20, 15 years that you have had your firm? And what advice do you have for folks that are using LinkedIn either in their jobs or for their own personal brand? What are some maybe some tricks that they should know about to be more clear, have better content, and collaborate better?
Well, on the first kind of side of it, I would say from an industry perspective, people would say, well, gosh, no one's really watching TV anymore, and no one's, getting the newspaper, no one's doing this, no one's doing that from a traditional media perspective. And for sure, have there been changes in the industry? However, the TV stations and the newspapers and all the outlets now have social media, and they post and share on their social media articles and interviews that they've done their normal format. They'll repurpose it on their social media. So social media has actually opened up a little more relevancy, I would say, for traditional media, because traditional media is using social media to put and post stories. So that has been a great evolution. As far as people using social media, as I mentioned, being a thought leader in your space and sharing articles or stories or commenting and talking about things that are happening in your industry is, I mean, take full advantage of doing that on social media. Well, most businesses, I would say there's so much value in LinkedIn and commenting on other people's posts and tagging people and sharing people. I do really feel like because the algorithms are changing all the time. And so just to make sure you're part of the conversation and staying relevant with social media is really important. So I think that people are, not to put anyone down, but they would be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't really make sure that they're touching it, engaging in it, staying involved in social media. I was just going to say that's like when back in the day people would say, do you have a website? I mean, I'm talking about 15, 20 plus years ago. You had to have a website. And nowadays it's like, well, are you on social media? And then when someone asks, yeah, I'm on social media, but you know what? I don't even do anything. That's not the right answer.
Right.
If you're in business, it's like, yep, this is my LinkedIn and I'm doing stuff all the time. I mean, I don't need to follow up by saying that, but feel confident that like, oh yeah, someone's going to go look at my LinkedIn or my whatever it is. That Instagram, could be a value of certain industries. Do
Right.
you
When I was looking into becoming a published author, it was a lot about do you have a following already? And I was like, oh wait, I thought it was about the quality of the book. It's like, well, that's the table stakes, but they need to sell said book. And if you've got no following, it's going to be really hard to break into a deal. And I would say that actually having a podcast and having already created, content on LinkedIn and done a lot of media before really helped me land a publishing deal. And, but that's meant that I've had to be on Instagram and I've had to do, things that I'm like, okay, who am I? What is my brand? What do I want to be known for? And it's been really interesting to see best-selling authors on Instagram as well as, folks that are just trying to break into the industry, all the different ways that they find to kind of tell their story. Some of it is a little cringy and some of it is really creative. And, I kind of applaud it all because people are trying to find their way a bit. And that idea of you need to be on social media if you're looking to sort of create and promote a brand is yeah, it's unavoidable. And for those who don't want to hear that, it's something that we keep saying. So it is the way of it. So tell us a little bit about what's next for you. So you've gone through kind of a transition of creating this firm. You have grown it into the largest PR firm in Arizona. So what are you looking to do next? What's the next frontier for you?
Well, I think we've only just begun.
Okay.
Which I'm sure is not surprising if you heard me say how much I'm, all about PR and the company. We decided as an organization about a year ago to, you've heard the saying, I don't know if you've heard the saying, the shoemaker's kids have no shoes. And we decided about a year ago to really treat Evolve like a client and do more for Evolve to elevate our brand, whether that's SEO, more of the social media, walk the walk, talk the talk. submit for different awards and rankings, which is another good one to share with your listeners for those looking to, elevate what they're doing. There's different industry awards, there's entrepreneur or just female, recognition in an industry, there's top businesses in different categories. So, really working to elevate and continue growing our brand. I see that there's a lot of opportunity to keep doing that where we haven't like hit that point. So I would say keep doing what we're doing. I know I referenced my mom about fear being the real four-letter F word. There's another one she has said that I'll share. Giving Barbara another shout out here. Get rich in your niche. And
Mm,
so that's something that we brought social media in about 5 years ago. And gosh help us, that was not our niche. Is it a compliment to Evolve? Yes. Do we work with influencers? Yes. But if someone's like, can you build out a calendar and do all the posting and the sharing? And that we tried it for a few years. And so really focusing on our niche and really embracing it and making sure that we are that go-to. So when someone's thinking of PR, oh, you got to call Evolve. And so I would tell people that, focusing on your niche and really being that go-to resource can help elevate the business too.
absolutely. I think that is such wise advice, Barbara. So
Yeah,
I'm
right?
like, I'm really liking your mom. I remember someone very close to me deciding to go get a graduate degree in something that they didn't really love because of the amount of money that they would make doing it. And now they're sort of living that out and they are making the money, but they are just unhappy. And I know that there's a transition coming from for them. And it's just sad for me to watch because I watch them follow the wrong thing. And I feel like companies that I've been a part of, I'll even give a shout out to LPL Financial, who was like my first foray into financial services. They absolutely knew their niche. They were
Yeah.
the largest independent broker dealer. They knew how to do it. They knew the walk and the talk. And I sort of grew up under this idea of we are not everything to everybody. If you want to be an independent, we are the broker dealer for you. And I didn't even appreciate it at the time how strong that was for creating culture, for creating messaging, for being able to say what it is that we do. And just being able to do that is a huge part of being able to be successful in any industry.
Yeah, I could talk about that for days too. I do believe that, I used to years ago use the analogy of the Cheesecake Factory menu. Now that's great. Obviously, not to go down a rabbit hole, but if a family's going and this one likes this and this one likes that, and I get it. But if you're like, I'm in the mood for Mexican food, Chinese food, Italian food, whatever, they might have elements of that on their menu, but you're not like, oh yeah, we need to go to Cheesecake Factory. It's like who you want a salad, you wanted this, you wanted that. I know we can get a little bit of all that there. But to be that go-to Italian restaurant or Chinese restaurant or Mexican restaurant, that's where you want to be known for it. They have the best XYZ, they're blah, blah, blah. And it's hard. Everyone wants to kind of have the cheesecake because am I leaving money on the table? Could I be getting more people if I do social media? Oh gosh, maybe we should do a little bit of branding or websites or whatever in our industry. And I'm like, you know what? We got to be true to ourselves because I want, and you're right, the culture as well. Then your team will connect with that and they're proud to be with whether it's the restaurant analogy or Evolve PR analogy, they're excited to be a part of that because they also can connect with it than like it being a hodgepodge.
Absolutely. I always think it's such an interesting allegory to writing because the more specific you are in the details of what's going on in a character's life, like what they're picking up, how it feels, all of that connects more than trying to be generic. And I just feel like, it just translates in so many areas. The more that we can sort of find these specifics by which we can connect over, the more that you're going to find people that are raving fans for what you do. So that's super great advice. So, Jennifer, I think we've gotten to our final question, which is always about books because that is where I have found my passion. Is there anything that you have read or listened to lately that you want to give a shout out to for our listeners?
I haven't lately, but as I was building my career, there were so many books that, from a business standpoint, inspired me and brought a lot of insight. Malcolm Gladwell had many, The Tipping Point, and some of his others, and I don't know why they're escaping me right now. And then Good to Great is one. So I feel like those and still carry, and stay with me in isms and experiences and moments and understanding people and dynamics of business and entrepreneurship. So I would say I can't reference any lately, but those still carry with me from a business standpoint.
Wonderful. Thank you. And how can our listeners find you and how could they be reaching out?
Well, our website, thank you, Evolve PR and marketing.com. And all of our other socials are the same thing, Evolve PR and spelled out marketing. We
Wonderful.
can hit all the channels.
Great. We'll have all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I know our listeners don't know that we had technical difficulties in the beginning and you were so gracious about it. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And it was just such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
And thank you, our listeners, for spending your time with us. I hope this is not just information, but you let it be transformational in how you think about your career. I'm rooting for you. If you're an Apple user, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to leave a rating and a review. Your ratings and reviews tell Apple that this is a podcast worth listening to. And in turn, your reviews will help We Talk Careers get in front of more listeners looking to succeed, just like you. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that follow button because there's going to be another brand new episode and you don't want to miss it. Until then, keep thriving. Thank you for listening.